We were not ready for this. When did Sauber get this good? And will it last? Well, I mean, I think so. The team's finally making good on all of that Audi investment, and oh yeah, they have a Hulk. Nico Hulkenberg passing Lewis Hamilton in turn 1 at the Circuit de Catalunya may have some caveats, but for Sauber, that doesn't matter. They scored 10 valuable points, with their rookie nearly adding more if the strategy matched Nico's. And I think he had a couple of bits that weren't on Nico's car, so it wasn't quite at full optimum speed, but the work that they both undertook at the Spanish Grand Prix was certainly commendable, and a really good sign that maybe they are not always going to be permanently attached to the back. No. That's the job of Alpine at the moment. It means they're part of the midfield mix now, and it wasn't to do with anything regarding the weather. No freak rainstorms providing them a bone. This was all down to pure pace and planning. And even if Nico didn't have new boots, as he said, regarding passing Hamilton, he still would have been on for a couple of points at the very least because, well, he was glued to the top 10 for pretty much the entire race, even though he qualified 15th. And oh yes, Bortoleto qualifying 12th, his best ever grid position. Yeah, and almost getting the points as well within a few seconds of Nico. That's something we've really got to talk about as well. And it's just, I really like this lineup and I like where this team is going. What an uptick, and it just makes you ask, what the hell happened? Well, quite a few things actually, but considering that not many people really cared about Sauber for the longest time, well, no one really bothered to look into it. Sauber's upgrade package may have only included 3 parts, one forced by the FlexiWing directive, but changes to the floor and engine cover as well as the front wing did give the car much needed balance, and that's been a major issue for several teams, even Red Bull. But it gives you the sense that because Sauber is one of the smaller teams, and therefore they don't have as much time or manpower being able to dedicate themselves to make complex, intricate front wings that can easily be nobbled by a technical directive, it means it might have been relatively simple, and maybe it didn't make much of a difference at all. I mean, of course, Nico then said because he went out in Q1, it meant that he had plenty of soft tyres to choose from, so he wasn't lacking regarding the soft, medium, soft strategy. So I can easily understand that some Lewis fans will go, see, they had an advantage against our man! Well, you know, you've got to make good on that soft rubber as well. It's all very well and good having a C3 set to hand, but if you can't do anything with it and the tyres just go off immediately, note for years many Haas cars, then it's completely pointless anyway. Your car has to make use of that rubber. And according to many publications, the uptick in terms of performance was about 0.3 of a second or so. And that is quite notable considering where we are in the regulation cycle, where convergence is the watchword. To make up 1/3 of a second, especially how close the grid is, that could easily make the difference between you qualifying last and making Q2 every single time. In the next few races, teams will be most certainly considering pulling the plug on this season in terms of development. With Sauber whipping out this package now, they could easily lock in the spec and then just lightly tweak it from there on. Now naturally, this is not something that happened overnight. Well, I mean, it feels like it because nobody's been paying attention to Sauber, and considering the last couple of Sauber cars have not actually been that electric, in fact, they've been very lucky to even score points at all in some races, or even come close, so people were paying no mind to it. They were just thinking, oh, Sauber, they're at the back. But seriously, all of the work that Mattia Binotto, Audi, James Key, Jonathan Wheatley, all of those people, including all of the people that work under them, it's now starting to really bear some fruit. Now, this doesn't mean they're going to be dominating the midfield just yet. It just means that these two cars aren't going to be pinned to the back. It means there is a chance for them to get out of Q1 most of the time. That there may be some tracks where they're simply just not good at. I think some of the notes say that the low speed stuff is something where it's a bit of an Achilles heel. They may not stand much of a chance there. But, you know, places like Silverstone with loads of high speed corners, that could be really good for them because it was kind of good around for them here. But needless to say, the most important thing is that both Gabriel and Nico have more confidence in the car. And that can easily be just as effective as yet another upgrade that the drivers believe in the car, in that it's not going to spin out on them, that they can do something with it. And for Audi, this is a huge deal in terms of their progression. Granted, the power unit in the back of the car is a Ferrari, but in terms of producing cars around said power units, the results are producing meaningful gains instead of throwing the team for another loop. Not that it would matter financially speaking, I mean, Audi now has owned 100% of Sauber for a while now, so the money is flowing in. And they've been able to successfully lobby the FIA for cost cap exceptions due to Switzerland's higher living wages. Something that all of the other teams really didn't take kindly to, but come on, Sauber's got to work around some really strict laws in the country of Switzerland. Regardless, even already, just after Nico scoring twice this season, they have now matched the points tally they had throughout the entirety of 2023. They have quadrupled last year's points tally, and when you look back through their score sheets, it's actually, most of the time, they are lucky to get beyond 20 points. So if they can just score a couple of more times, they'll have already done far better than the lot of the seasons that Sauber have taken part in throughout the 2010s and 20s. And honestly, the way I've been seeing Sauber this year, this to me is Audi Season 0 or something like that, because it is Audi in all but name, and Mattia Binotto has been in charge throughout the preparation time for 2025. The C45 is to Binotto a fresh start. This is the first car he's overseen throughout the majority of its development. It carries over lessons from late last year, but swaps out much of the hardware. James Key points to an overhauled aero package, new front and rear suspension, lower weight, and better cooling than last year's car, which nobody loved. And I remember all of the stories of what Mattia discovered when he became the CEO of the Audi Formula 1 project, that the previous management, Alessandro Oluni Bravi and Andreas Seidel, they were left paralysed. They had no clue in what to do. And you got the sense that throughout 2024, that sure, Audi was giving them plenty of money to hire more people and come up with some extra fancy tools, but there was just no direction. You felt like Bottas and Zhou had really nothing going for them, and all of this taking place at the moment when Audi looked their most precarious, like they may have pulled the plug on the project entirely because Seidel had no aim. And this was really surprising, considering that Seidel had really cut his teeth with Porsche within endurance cars, and he did really well at McLaren, and then suddenly, here, just got nothing. But now with Binotto in charge, he emphasised that process is just as vital as pace. Gains will come not only from lap time, but from sharper pit stops, cleaner weekends, and faster development. The driver pairing supports that plan too. Nico brings experience and feedback, whilst Bortoleto offers long-term potential and a strong work ethic, as described in my video on Gabi a couple of weeks ago. Basically, what Sauber's trying to do right now is not try and take a quantum leap in terms of the car, because it's all very well and good having a fast car, but if you can't do anything with it in terms of having a really quick pit stop as well, then you're going to lose so much time. Take note, Red Bull. So it's all about due process and doing things steadily, softly, smoothly, so that means you understand it fully. That's why Wheatley was brought in, to be on the ground floor to help Sauber rebuild things from the ground up in the way he envisioned, the way that Wheatley did it at Red Bull. And he's going to be taking this opportunity with both hands, Jonathan, because this has been a long-held dream of his to be a team principal within Formula 1. We all thought that maybe he would have become the next team principal had Christian Horner had to bow out, but, well, that didn't happen, and considering that Jonathan is actually a little bit older than Christian, time was against him. But now, at the age of, I think, 52, he now has his chance. And Jonathan, he's no spring chicken when it comes to Formula 1. He's one of the most influential trackside operators within the entire sport. He is, in terms of trackside operations, the equivalent of Adrian Newey. Wheatley ran Red Bull's trackside program, coordinated logistics, car builds, pit stop drills, the fine print of the sporting regulations. He basically did it all. His methods produced a string of pit stop world records and helped the team stay on the right side of the rulebook when split-second calls were needed, thing being very instrumental in Abu Dhabi 2021 in convincing the FIA and the race director, Michael Massey, to do what he did. He knows his stuff, Jonathan. He knows exactly what to do. Like what we saw in Imola with the whole kerfuffle regarding Behrman and red flags, and he knew what was coming, so he basically told Gabi, just get down the pit lane. We got this. And sure enough, they did. He's even come to the defence of the FIA stewards, Jonathan, most notably when his old boss insisted that stewards provide real-time decisions instead of teams second-guessing the FIA. Wheatley shut that down and rallied the people employed by Rui Marquez. And I think it will help too that Jonathan has actually come to the defence of the stewards, which is a real rarity these days, so it'll be nice for a team principal that understands and respects the stewards in a way. Also, in terms of the pit stops, you've got to be looking at the charts of the fastest pit stops. Around the Spanish Grand Prix, Sauber had the fastest pit stop of 2.13 seconds with Gabi's, I think, second stop or something. But either way, This is not the first time that they've done this, and in terms of the standings for the DHL fastest pit stop of the year, the championship in that, Sauber are third, 11 points ahead of Red Bull in fifth. Sauber coming from last year to third. That is a huge swing. Because I remember that we were charting Sauber pit stop times in minutes, which really goes into what I was saying regarding Sauber looking at things more than just technical upgrades. His record in rapid in-season development and ability to unite factory and pit wall, they're exactly the kind of thing that Audi needs into their new era of operation. Now, of course, Jonathan isn't just going to be the sporting director and trackside operator of the team, he's the team principal. He is going to be doing other things that team principals do, then just make sure that he does exactly the same thing he did at Red Bull. But he knows exactly what to do and what to put in place, so that means when he does get people to delegate with, then he can just easily instruct them to do what needs to be done, and he is there trackside to be able to step in case there is an emergency. There is a fast feedback loop there. And then it just makes you wonder, how on earth did Sauber get so good in pit stops suddenly? Well, of course, Jonathan's presence there is a factor. But according to F1 oversteer and journalist Diego Mejia, there might actually be a more obvious and, visual reason. Because according to them, Wheatley had begun to siphon several staff members from Red Bull, in particular in terms of pit stop crew. Mejia, recognising many faces that once wore blue, were now wearing black and green. And having those people within the existing structure to then train up the ones that were already there will be a huge bonus. In fact, I was reading Callum Nicholas's book about what life was like as a pit stop mechanic and one of the lead members of that crew, that there were dedicated apparatus for pit crew members to be able to train on the fly, so that means they were at the top of their game. There were many procedures and workflows that Wheatley had perfected in the last 19 years, so I think it would be quite safe to say that some of these practices will be carried over to Sauber, and who's to say that maybe we might get even more people from Red Bull once their gardening leave period comes to an end. It'll be really interesting to see how many more Red Bull faces end up working within Switzerland. Binotto has also been hiring people too, this time from his former haunt Ferrari. So already, you can sense that Audi will, and in part already are, benefiting from knowledge garnered from front-running teams, with two men who know where to look instead of just picking the big names, with most likely more conditions as to their employment. The biggest move Mattia has acquired is that of Iñaki Rueda, Ferrari's former head of race strategy, who joined Sauber late last season as sporting director, and now runs race week sporting decisions and FIA relations under Wheatley. Now, the main thing to remember here is that Binotto wasn't just your bog-standard team principal. He used to be in charge of engineering, helping to build the power units of Ferrari, so he does know a thing or two when it comes to designing engines, and he knows exactly where to look within the back rooms, the areas within Ferrari that you don't see in the pit lane, the ones that hide behind the curtain. One is Stephen Petrick, an 8-year Ferrari performance engineer who shifted to Switzerland last year and is now Nico's race engineer. So far, these are the only confirmed hires from Maranello, but more staff could follow, again, once their garden leave periods end, showing Binotto's intent to build an Audi-ready operation core around people he already trusts. Even though Mattia is a whiz, a natural when it comes to designing power units, because let's not forget the 2019 Ferrari power unit and it being so stonkingly good that the FIA gave them a slap on the wrist and the knuckles. No, they are very much tempering their expectations. They're not Alpine here, people. They're not going to be saying, oh, we're going to be winning races next year. No, that's going to take a while for them to do that. They're just hoping to not be the worst power unit. But as far as I can see, that's not the aim of the game here, people, because we're going to be going into next year an era where you can just keep on developing the power units. It's not a development freeze anymore, thanks to Red Bull powertrains. They can keep going, so long as Audi's got a stable baseline to work from, they can quickly develop it when they get more and more people on the job. And as I touched upon, and will be very, very important, is, yeah, you can have some nice shiny tools to make your engines from, but you've also got to have the right people. And I think Mattia knows exactly who the right people are. Sure, Audi might end up with a so-so engine in 2026, but in a couple of years' time it might actually end up being a pretty good engine. And they'll have it all to themselves, and finding reliability and efficiency, and then some power gains as well. So it doesn't really matter if it's slow right out of the gate. There is time here, people. Then there's the drivers to consider. By finishing 5th after Verstappen's penalty, Nico matched his best result in 6 years, showing but he still got it, despite being the third oldest driver behind Alonso and Hamilton. Nico himself was really lucky, considering that he put all of his faith in the Saddle project, him having worked with Andreas within Porsche, and together they did win Le Mans in the 2010s one time. And now, Nico's back at Sauber, the place which greeted him in 2013 and have really fond memories with him, and where he got one of his best results of a 4th place at the 2013 Korean Grand Prix. He's locked in with this team for the next 2 seasons after this one, so there is plenty of time to maybe finally get that first podium, and I think the F1 world will simply rejoice. But make no mistake, I'm pretty sure that last year there was some trepidation in Nico's thoughts, looking at what Sauber were doing and how well Haas were able to do. Last year being able to screw around with a couple of the front-running cars from time to time, most notably Checo and Austria. And that 5th place finish is 1 place higher than whatever position Nico achieved over at Haas. It is good to know that the German isn't getting ahead of himself though, that he is aware that this was a little bit of an anomaly, but maybe in the next few months this might provide something good and a little bit more consistent. That maybe finally that C45 has better balance than it had done in the first couple of races. And I think Nico's qualities are really going to serve the team well with him as a leader, that he will be relatively grounded and that he will actually be quite direct. He'll be blunt. I recall many times in 2023 that Nico just said, well, Haas, you're not good enough. Do something about it. And speaking of upgrades, Sauber are planning to have one more batch of upgrades before the summer break to maybe extend the operating window, so that means they have a little bit more versatility when it comes to setup, so that means they can spend more time fettling it within practice. And then of course making their car that little bit more lighter, and as Williams proved with shedding 15 kilos off the W47, that can easily gift you even more lap time. It's an easy fix, just make the car lighter and you can easily shave off another couple of tenths, so Sauber might be touching Q3 if they keep going. As for Bortoleto, I am so happy right now. The last few races have thrown up some flashes of potential, what with more and more Q2 appearances, making gutsy overtakes on stronger cars despite them not ultimately working out, and generally presenting himself as a mature young man who's more than happy to grind down at the back of the pack, in peace. Now, you might be thinking that driving for Sauber is a little bit of a death sentence. It didn't really do Zhou Guanyu's F1 career any favours, and as we have seen, many people just forgot that Bortoleto was on the grid, or they end up thinking that he's just slow and that he doesn't belong in Formula 1, that he always be a perennial backmarker. But Bortoleto, what does he care? He's easily brushed off comments and criticism from the likes of Dr. Marco with panache, even though he hasn't scored like Isaac, like Liam, like Oliver and Kimi. It will come though. He came really close in Spain, so I personally think that in the next few races we will see at least a P10 coming from Bortoleto. And the most important thing is that Audi and Sauber are happy with him. He is happy, Bortoleto, in himself with the team, and McLaren, oh, they're very happy. Well, wait, hang on, what's McLaren got to do with this law? Well, don't forget he was part of their junior development program, and even though Zach was trying to be altruistic and saying that Bortoleto could drive for Sauber for free, that they don't have to pay a single dime, no, there is more to this, and no, it's got nothing to do with Zach Brown wanting to poke even more the bear that is Christian Horner. No, it's nothing to do with that. With Bortoleto winning the F2 championship, the McLaren Academy needs an outlet. Right now, Oscar and Lando aren't going anywhere, so sticking their top junior frees space up and lets Bortoleto gain live race experience that McLaren could never give him in a reserve role. Even though I do find it incredibly odd that throughout the entirety of last year, Bortoleto never got an FP1 session with McLaren. What was up with that? A season or two worth of mileage around another garage will be valuable information to McLaren to see whether or not he is a potential ticket in case either Piastri or Norris decides to bail on them in the not too distant future. But for the sake of the argument, Norris and Piastri, they're not going anywhere for at least another 2 or 3 years. So for Bortoleto, this is some easy development and an opportunity to prove himself with a completely different team, with Sauber footing all of the costs to boot, and then McLaren could easily call him back if the opportunity arises. And also, this act of will could become very handy in terms of a conduit of junior drivers, because let's remember, Audi will not have that Ferrari passageway going through 2026, so they won't be having any recruits to fill in the gaps for maybe a cheeky little subsidy here or there. So if they can get into bed with McLaren to provide themselves some good junior drivers, then they don't have to provide a junior academy of their own anymore. So yes, the uptick in pace for Sauber is good for all parties, especially Gabi. I personally believe that the lineup is and will continue to be one of the most harmonious on the grid. Even if the cars suddenly became worthy of wins and titles and there'd be more pressure, they'll probably remain amicable. They're at polar opposites when it comes to their careers. Gabriel, he's just beginning, having had a stellar F2 and F3 track record, whereas Hulkenberg, he's right at the end of his F1 career. I think he will be retiring with the likes of Sauber and Audi. He might get a couple of extra years if he turns out to be really good and he wants to stay there, but yeah, there is no pressure in terms of trying to impress other teams. He's just here to have a little bit of fun, Hulkenberg, and of course representing Germany, his home country, with a German team. Something that he almost got with Mercedes, because apparently there was a rumour that he'd be replacing Nico Rosberg when he decided to unexpectedly retire, but then Bottas got that role. So yeah, getting to work with Audi, that's the next best thing. But yes, there's no pressure, no immediate target set by Audi. This year and probably next will be fact-finding missions. There's no instant demand to win championships from the board of directors in Germany. Both drivers have that multi-year deal in their pocket, so they've got a huge weight off their shoulders. And I think this next bit's quite wholesome, is that this is the first time that Nico Hulkenberg has been partnered up with a proper, true blue, greenhorn rookie. As in, a rookie that has never had any experience in Formula 1 before, at all before now. And when you look at them together, you can sense that Nico is enjoying it, that he's feeding off the youthful energy of Bortoleto, and therefore it makes him feel young again, and buoyed up as well, motivated, that he doesn't have to be schooling Bortoleto all the time, because he rates the Brazilian as fast as hell. So there's no worry about waiting for him to get up to speed. Well, according to him, he's already up to speed, so they could just work together like they would if both drivers were well seasoned. Nico's perfectly content with his lot in life. There's no insecurity here. There's no sense of vulnerability. It's all good. It's all gravy. And that was before Binotto and Wheatley picked him up, because again, Seidel picked him up, and Nico remained true. He remained faithful. He believed in the process regardless of who was in charge. He's got two guys who came from front-running teams managing him, so this is going to look even better. And in turn, Audi's now completely reinvigorated. They've really reaffirmed their commitments. They've survived the storm that was expected to come from a return to V10s, which were completely against the measurements that Audi signed up for Formula 1 in the first place. Turbo hybrids. The push for more staff, more facilities, more everything is starting to trickle down into the workflow trackside. Something which will be even more established come next year, when we finally see the 4 rings on the car for the first time. And even before the team puts the label on their next car, whatever it's called, hopefully it's a nice little nod to Sauber and it's the C46, then we've actually been seeing Audi's logo crop up on Sky Sports coverage, them sponsoring Sky Sports coverage. So trying to get the word out there that Audi and Formula 1 are associated one another towards more casual fans, to further strengthen belief that they are serious about this sport, because they're putting good money in terms of sports coverage revolving around F1, especially after a long period of doubt where people were really just unsure about their commitment. Well, they are definitely committed now. So yeah, Nico's going to have a great time. If he gets a podium out of all this, awesome. If he just continues to be a decent midfield driver, well then that's okay too, because he's with a team that already, within not even double figures of racing for them again, they've managed to get themselves a top 5 finish. Sure, it was requiring a penalty to get him up from 6th to 5th, but there were moments when, again, you could overtake a Ferrari. That's just insane. And I think it'll be incredibly poignant for Audi and Hulkenberg to be successful together, because it means that maybe there might be some new energy with German Formula 1 fans, because you got to admit, without having Hockenheim there to boot, and Mick Schumacher dropping out, but hopefully he might be coming back with Cadillac, so this might be amplified even more, well, Formula 1 and Germany, it's been on a lukewarm footing, but now it may start to flare back up again. And Brazil, they've been on the market for looking for a full-time Formula 1 driver since 2017, and Bortoleto's right there, and he's showing potential. We might get Felipe Drugovich stepping in case Lance Stroll's injuries turn out to be really, really sustained and he needs more recovery. And then eventually, if Rafael Camara comes in, they'll have 3 Brazilian drivers in there potentially. So quite frankly, for Sauber, this is all good news, because they'll get a huge contingent of fans from Brazil, and Audi hopefully may sell some more cars there, and Germany might start coming back to them. That Germany will be supporting Sauber, then becoming Audi. So getting 2 big countries with a big pedigree within Formula 1, brilliant. And besides, the Brazilian market, they'll have plenty of sponsors that will be backing Bortoleto and Sauber once the stake deal runs out at the end of the year. They'll be wanting to fill in that hole. Sauber might still be wearing green, but make no mistake, this is Audi's first season, in my opinion, and they've just slapped Alpine to the back of the line. Wow. And how Sauber is evolving, Red Bull is seemingly devolving. The perks of Wheatley no longer felt in Milton Keynes, and has cost Max dear. To find out why I think Red Bull is suffering a major downturn in performance, even though there was a bit of an upward blip a few months ago, Watch this video next, straight after this one.